Welcome everyone to the day of Create SMP. Now, there is one thing I want to do before we get started. I want to explain that a few minutes after we start here, we are going to be receiving some optional side quests. These side quests are going to be distributing the currency that we're going to be using on the server. For completing these side quests, you are going to get 3 silver coins. Once you've completed your side quest, you are free to find me anywhere in the world, and you will get your coins. Is everyone ready?
Ready.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right,
Let's do this.
let's go.
Yippee!
Yeah.
Let's go.
With the intro done, I was mostly left alone, which the initial plan was to follow a set of coordinates I had already picked out for a base. Unfortunately, I can't read coordinates very well, which then proceeded for me running around aimlessly for probably most of that first day.
So this should be fun. Y'all get to watch me struggle with basic Minecraft. That's good content, right? Right.
Naturally, I cut down a tree
Basic
and
of
with the
basic
wood
is.
went over to use the nearby crafting table that someone had placed down. Rude.
Me?
I was using that.
Oh no. I'm sorry. Did I put it back down?
Somewhere along the way, I'd end up actually making a crafting table for myself along with a pickaxe and collected a little bit of stone. As Sunny had promised, eventually a side quest began to appear. As someone that had already run away from the primary group and was mostly on her own, the staring contest wasn't something I could entirely complete, at least yet. Having either not read or understood the quest properly, my immediate go-to was to start staring at any nearby mob, including a poor donkey. Having dicked around for most of the day, I didn't really pay attention to when night began to approach. Without a bed, I would need to find a cave to hide in. Day 2 began with me in said cave, wherein I was able to attempt my side quest. I did this by staring at the back of my old flame's head for a bit. Since he was looking upwards and I could see his eyes, I figured this would count. Unfortunately, he almost immediately ran away. There had been a decent amount of coal in the cave, and after checking to make sure that there was nothing else of value, I ended up leaving to continue to find the coordinates for my new base. Instead, I decided to follow a wolf for a while. Since I was travelling a lot, I needed some food, so I came across a river and began to slaughter some of the fish. Ended up finding a mob head of a few of the salmon that I killed, and likewise murdered a few squid for their ink, which I would no doubt use in the future. Eventually, in my adventures, I came across a village, where I ended up stealing a bed from them and some blocks of hay for wheat and further food. With 2 days of travel time behind me and still over 1,000 blocks away from where I wanted to be, I ended up coming across a bit of an outcrop with trees, honey, and plenty of water. Here I would stay for a little bit as a temporary base. After clearing some land, I put my crafting tables down, my furnaces, and decided to read about the side quest once more. My next attempt at fulfilling it was to hold a sheep in front of a bumblebee and just hope that that would still count. It also ran away. Whilst I was clearing more land and gathering more resources, I discovered that there was a pop-up informing me when my tools ran low. This caused me to be confused, and whilst reading it, I didn't realise I broke a beehive, which caused a few of them to turn hostile and attack me. Later in the day, I began my first mine where I'd be focusing most of my efforts for some time. It was full of andesite and a little bit of copper, both of which would be invaluable for create purposes. Eventually I found a cave with a single skeleton in it, which led to my very first fight with a proper mob. cave itself was decent enough with some early game ore and plenty of building materials I could use. However, there was a small ravine throughout the middle of it that was absolutely full of mobs. Without decent armor or weapons, I had absolutely no way of clearing it, but it was on my mental to-do list to try and deal with at a later point. The rest of day 2 went by whilst I was down in the cave, and someone on the surface eventually slept, which led into the beginning of day 3. I continued to mine for coal, copper and whatever else I could get a hold of with my limited pickaxes. After a little while of collecting some cobblestone and ore, I left the mine to start on what would be a starter base. I made a shield I knew I wouldn't use, an iron pick and a sword to match. The shield of which I ended up putting immediately into a chest. With the starts of the house behind me and an iron pickaxe, I could gather up the zinc that I'd seen in the cave and begin preparations for early create contraptions. Not only was my first ore not zinc, but I'd also not realised that night was approaching as someone else had to sleep once more whilst I was in the cave. I also collected just over a stack of andesite, which could then mix with the zinc for andesite alloy. I made as much alloy as I could, and after stripping some logs I ended up making some andesite casing along with some shafts and other early game parts. I made a presser for iron sheets and failed at making a hand crank to power it. Although I had been lucky with zinc and copper, the amount of iron I had was abysmal. With my tools I barely had any left to actually use for early game creation. I soon learned that the rest of the server were also in a major iron deficit. I decided to spend the rest of that evening making some more crate items like andesite casings, and it soon led into day 6. With my new saw, I cut down a few trees and then began to put the flooring into the house. After finishing the flooring, I decided to do some exploration. I needed kelp for crate contraptions regardless, and I was still a while off from where I initially wanted to base up. Since I had found another village and it was far enough away from everyone else, I stole more of the bread, but left most of it intact if anyone else wanted to come by. With the same logic of being far enough away to not really care, I started slaughtering some of the animals I came across for leather and meat. One of the most important create components is glue, which is primarily made out of slime balls. That in its own right is difficult, but you can make it with dough and lime dye. So as I was exploring, I was hoping I could come across a plant or two that would drop it for me. I came across a spruce biome that I really should have gone into for some saplings, along with a mangrove biome which I really should have gone into. Whilst I was mining for some copper and iron, someone slept, which now marked a week since the server had begun. Day 7 started strong with an absolute mother load of kelp just inches away from where I was already mining. On the walk home, I decided to stop into the spruce biome to collect some saplings. At this point, some of the server had already collected diamonds and were working their way into the nether. Booyah, however, decided to try and break obsidian with a drill and nearly killed himself through starvation. Related to the Nether, I'd come across a ruined portal where I could get lava and a block of gold, which I could have used for more create stuff without actually having to mine. I mined as much magma cubes as I could along with some netherrack, both of which could be used for nether and create purposes. By the time I got home it was becoming night again, and I joined a call with a few of the other SMP members where we were discussing what was going on around the server.
I'm gonna do basic machines and stuff in the center area with everyone else, then branch out. But I'm gonna get some machines up and going first. Got a mechanical press.
With the press at home and the gold I had already acquired, I created a...
Wrench.
Ugh, I don't want to do like half the gameplay in Minecraft.
Minecraft players when they have to play Minecraft.
With a decent collection of resources, minus the iron, I decided it was time to actually start working on said iron farm. Eventually some others joined the call, including Sunny.
Hello.
Hello.
What are you guys doing?
I'm getting ready for the Nether.
Getting ready for the Nether. You're going pretty fast.
Well, I kind of skipped a few steps by just completing a ruined portal using a drill, so...
Oh my gosh.
Remembering from earlier how I wanted to grind down a bunch of flowers into dye, I quickly created a millstone, connected it to the power system, and threw down all the flowers I had in hopes of getting some sort of lime or green dye. Come on, please. I know it's on like 5%, but just anything.
The green. Oh, why don't you just... You can get a piece of fern. The fern is like a 100%.
Despite this absolutely revelating news, I never once picked up a fern. Likely due to my hatred of my new greatest enemy, the fern, I decided to go into the mines to try and find more metal.
Lost where my home is.
Likely sent by the cowardly ferns, I was eventually ambushed by a skeleton who I, for some reason, just massively fucking struggled to fight. In the fighting, I hadn't noticed that another day had passed.
Oh, I found some sugarcane. Not been able to find some in forever. I say that as I search for 5 minutes. I need a clipboard. I cannot stay on track without this clipboard.
And with that, I literally could not agree more, so I immediately dropped everything I was doing to make a clipboard. After that, with a clipboard, I wouldn't get distracted nearly as much, so naturally I should have been working on the iron farm. Instead I bred the bees and began to grind more flowers down for further lime dye, forgetting once again about the ferns. Whilst I was looking through my resources, night came and then went, leading into the next day with the iron farm still unfinished.
Man, I've put so much time into this time skip that I don't think it's a time skip anymore. I think I'm just losing time.
What is the time skip for?
I'm doing all these drill setups and stuff to get enough obsidian to make a portal when I feel like I didn't realize how slow the drill is. So it was still taking like 2 to 3 minutes for each block of obsidian, and I'm like, oh, I could have totally found diamonds by now.
You've been mining obsidian this whole time? Like this whole call?
A lot of it.
I got a bunch of magma blocks because you can just wash those.
You can wash those to get obsidian?
Oh yeah, you can. That's base create, I think.
Oh,
Oh wait, I'm so sorry. I think you have a washing setup too.
I do.
Yeah, you can get like a stack of obsidian like that.
I could have saved like 20 minutes.
With all the talk of the Nether and the fact that I would need brass for later create constructions, I began to work on my own portal.
think it's mainly when I'm around all my... I will optimize machines later, but right now, because I'm working with water wheels, it's a lot of gear ratios.
Completely underprepared and under-equipped, I was not ready in the slightest, but I at least wanted to see where the nearby fortress would be.
Which is why I'm so focused on going to the nether.
I like the little campfire ones. They're cute.
This spawn quickly ended my trip into the nether. With my defeat in the nether likely at the hands of the ferns, I started to decorate my house a little bit more.
Now that's high quality B-roll.
I think I've made the slightest mistake wanting to live in a jungle. That mistake being the trees.
Bro couldn't see the jungle for the trees.
Oh, Crow's the one. Yeah, Crow's the one who keeps going to sleep. He's the good person.
Eventually I go mining again to try and find some more iron for the drills, and I actually come across my first diamonds.
Creeper! Aw, man.
I have been searching for a cave to no avail at all. I'm just gonna pick a spot and dig down now, to be honest.
Villager, get out of my bed! I can't even sleep, but the villagers can, so they keep taking my bed.
After a few days of not doing anything besides some mining and some housework, I began in earnest the iron farm.
I made a whole setup where I was like, I can now just fill up this tank full of...
The game isn't peak. He broke my computer.
The plan for the iron farm was for 3 drills to mine cobblestone from a generator. Those go into multiple mills, which then get washed into iron nuggets and flint, which I could use for trading with the villagers.
So, what happened was, I tried to do the 3 block up to kill the iron golem. I didn't see that there was a block nearby that he could climb up on, and he got my ass.
Oh no! I'm gonna go help him.
That's rough.
I'm gonna go.
Taking on the woodland mansion at this point is ill-advised.
Yeah.
A full stack of cobblestone had turned into less than an ingot of iron. The flint was decent, but we would need a cobblestone generator before anything else. I know seagulls, I know. I live on the coast.
Aren't normal bricks throwable?
Huh.
Sorry, Iron Golem. It's nothing personal. Can finally go to the nether. I've been working on this for so long. Okay.
With that fuck up, it led to a diamond pickaxe being made, the obsidian to be repaired, and to me have to spend a good 10 minutes actually remembering how to make a cobble gen.
If the server dies and I lose all that shit, I'm gonna have a Joker arc. Ganbatene server Sama, please don't let me lose my items.
The cobblestone was now getting turned into gravel, which was then getting turned into iron and flint. However, without any kind of filter, I had no way of actually storing it, which then meant I would need to go into the nether to get brass. I then spent a while preparing to go back into the nether. I made a blazed brazier and gathered some blocks to help bridge with. Eventually I was offered a deal I couldn't refuse.
Luna, do you want a baked potato?
I sincerely believe this was part of a side quest and that I had been duped, but I didn't really feel like fighting it at the time, so I just accepted it.
Alright, I'm heading your way.
I eventually offered to trade for the potato and was worried that I would have to owe a favour in the future, which I was eventually called out for.
No trade. Only take.
Only
One
take.
free baked potato. I put all this work into farming. I have to share the baked potato.
So, like, will I just owe you a favour in the future or something?
Shh. Don't think about it.
I'll owe you a favor in the future. Remember that one time?
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, I need some diamonds. Remember that time that I gave you a potato?
You gave me a potato too, you've just been kind of throwing them out.
Turns out I don't have the recording of the potato transfer in question, so I've had to recreate it here. After getting the potato, I was ready enough to go into the nether, so prepared for that and finally entered. Which would be for next episode. Bye!